Hey everyone, it's Mango, and I just wanted to make a little brief first impressions video here for the new Moyu AoSu that just came out. And the reason I haven't disassembled is there's a couple of things I wanted to point out before I get into doing some solves and talking about the performance and the turning. Something to be aware of is that the new Moyu AoSu is a ball core. As you can see, the ball core is in there, and there are magnets in the feet of the corners. That is something to point out. Something else to point out is, and that's the reason I have the VinCube out here, is that the centerpiece design looks kind of similar to the VinCube, being that if you look at the kind of back end of this corner here, I don't know how well it'll show up on camera, but you can see there's this kind of like bevel, which is vaguely similar to that on the VinCube. Now, I'll try to get it to focus here. Let's see if I can add more light here and see if that helps. Not really, but you can kind of see it. It is somewhat similar, except on the AoSu, it's a lot more steep and much bigger. But I figured that was something interesting and just something I wanted to point out because I think other people might find it interesting. Now, there is one more thing I wanted to mention before we move on to the performance, and that is on the inside of these like little internal like edge pieces here. When you open it up, there seems to be a little spot where you could put like a magnet. That lines up with this part, this kind of bottom part of the edge piece, where it looks like there's enough space to put a magnet in there. From what I'm picturing in my head is that that would be preferred over doing a ball core, would be to have these pieces be magnetically attracted to each other. Now, I know with ball cores on even layered cubes, the reason that it's not perfect is that some of the inner slices are going to feel weaker or stronger than others, and I don't know the exact science or really the best way to explain how that works. You can definitely look it up, and there's information out there on there. But in my mind, from what I'm like kind of picturing, is that having the edge piece be magnetically attracted to this kind of inner wing center edge piece would be preferred. I don't know if that's actually true, so you guys can feel free to let me know in the comments if that would actually fix the problem, or if that causes new problems, or it's the same problem. Feel free to let me know. But with that said, let's go ahead and reassemble the cube, and I'll talk about the kind of turning in the performance of this cube. All right, just want to let you guys know as I scramble this up, I have done a total of 2 solves on this. I also haven't set it up at all, so it's got all the Moyu factory lube, same tensions as out of the box. There's been pretty much no adjustment to this cube whatsoever. But with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the solves.
Hey everyone, it's VoiceOver Mango. Let's go ahead and talk about this cube. I'm going to try and keep it concise and not try to talk your ear off, but there are a few things that I want to discuss, so I'm going to try and go through them pretty quickly here. So first things first, out of the box, this cube feels really good. It's got some pretty good performance to it. It's smooth. It doesn't have that typical dry, sandy feel that most new cubes have, so I'm a real big fan of that. However, the actual factory lube that they used, not quite a fan of that. I would say best thing you could do is just completely wipe out the cube, get rid of all that factory lube, and then set it up with your own lubricants. Now, another thing I noticed straight out of the box is that the cube is kind of similar to the Meilong V2 3x3s that came out in the sense that it's fast, but the tensions feel tight. Now, it's not to the same degree. The Meilong V2s were really fast and they were like really tight for the tensions, whereas this one I would say is just barely too tight. I would say just loosen it a tiny bit, use some heavier lube on the outer layers specifically, and you should be like good to go. Obviously, if you want to fully set up this cube and get the best performance out of it, you are going to have to probably do a little bit more than that. I also want to clarify that it doesn't have the same turning feel as the Meilong V2. It's a bit different than that, so don't think that they are like totally similar. It's just that it's fast and feels a little tight. However, there is a cube that people will ask if it feels like, which is the VinCube. And while there are some similar traits that I'll touch upon in just a moment, it doesn't feel like it's a copy or an attempt to be a VinCube. It has its own unique feel, just with almost like little bits of the VinCube sprinkled in. So let's go over what those are. The main thing is that the catching is similar to the VinCube. Now, there's not a lot of catching. The only reason I bring it up is because it's something I noticed with the cube not being set up So obviously with a non-setup cube, you're going to get a lot more catching than you would when you actually fully set it up and make sure the tensions are good. So the catching that I do experience is similar to the Vin Cube in the sense that it's kind of blockish. It feels a lot more solid, whereas if you were to catch on like a GAN 3x3 or like the GAN 12, it feels a little bit more like snappy or like crunchy, you know? It's a bit lighter. It just feels like these catches that I'm getting on the new AoSu is a bit more blocky, similar to that of the Vin Cube. And really, that's like the biggest similarity. The feel is vaguely similar, but I think we're just moving to 4x4s that feel faster and feel really stable, which this cube definitely does. It has a very stable feel, which I am a fan of. Now, something that definitely sets this cube apart from cubes like the Vin Cube or the MGC is its size. Similar to the previous AoSu, it is smaller, and it also feels a bit lighter. Now, I haven't actually checked the weights for the cubes, but from what I've felt in my hands is that there is a somewhat noticeable difference in the weight. I definitely think that the AoSu is lighter. So if you're a fan of a smaller, lighter, but still very stable cube, you'll probably like the new AoSu. But if you're a fan of a slightly bigger cube, something that feels really solid and borderline bulky-ish, you'll probably like the Vin Cube more. So overall, based on the little bit that I've spent with this cube, again, I need to spend more time with this cube to really develop really strong opinions on this cube. But from the brief time I've spent with it, it's pretty good. I think it definitely has main potential for a lot of people. In my opinion, I like it more than the Vin Cube, and I think a lot of people will as well. So with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.
All right, I know I'm going to get clowned on if I don't do a Yao solve, so I'll throw in a Yao solve. There we go. All right. I can do Yao. I proved it. I can do Yao. I made a couple mistakes, but I can do it, I swear.